discuss the efficacy of the UN and United Nations Security Council in managing international conflicts. In managing international conflicts. The story शुरू होता है UN का formation itself. Okay, 1945, the UN Charter, the setting up of United Nations Security Council. इसका main objective क्या है? World peace. The main objective was no more wars. The main objective was no more conflicts. इसका roots है, war ही roots है. That's why I'm saying to manage the conflicts. This is one of the core objectives. Development तो आता रहेगा, ठीक है. The core objective of the Security Council and UN Charter is that we must have no wars. We must have no conflicts. We must have rather peaceful resolution of conflicts. To start the story from here. Why this? Basically, objective क्या है? In the backdrop of the world wars. और इसका basis क्या है? How does it want to do this? It established what's called as liberal institutionalization based on multilateral collaborative platform. ये उसका basis है. That UN will help develop liberal institutionalization. का मतलब है human rights, development. Okay, we'll talk about collaborations. Okay, we'll talk about democracy, and do this by making UN the multilateral collaborative platform. ये words आपको पता होना चाहिए. Multilateral collaborative platform. The UN as a multilateral collaborative platform. With this in mind, its organization was set up, which is Security Council, General Assembly. Security Council is the main organ, और इसके resolutions are binding resolutions. Now, with this objective, with this vision, the UN has been working for promoting global peace, for ensuring conflict resolution, where possible, trying to reduce escalation of conflicts. ठीक है, war बंद नहीं हुआ, but वो aggravate भी नहीं हो जाए. For ensuring reduction of escalation of conflicts. Okay. Plus humanitarian assistance, plus protection of civilians. POC बोलते हैं. Protection of civilians and prevention of war crimes. ये भी agenda है as a part of its conflict management. ठीक है, तो UN का role don't evaluate only in terms of whether UN has succeeded in prevent a war or not. बहुत जगह it can't prevent, but it does do something ताकि war ज़्यादा नहीं बढ़े. और जहां पर नहीं कर पा रहा है, वहां पर it is protecting civilians. It is providing aid. अभी यूक्रेन में हो रहा है ना? Wherever possible, is trying to prevent war crimes. और इसी का extension है. Don't forget, through institutions like NPT, fairly successful in controlling nuclear proliferation. अबे कितने nuclear states हैं? Any idea? How many nuclear states? Okay, there are 9 of them. 9 of them. 4 of them are not a part of. So Iran is not a part. Pakistan, Israel, and India. बाकी 5 are part of NPT. तो अगर NPT नहीं होता, ये 9 शायद कतई नहीं, God knows, 22, 25, 23 कितना होता. ये भी important part है. The UN with its NPT के support में, it has stopped. So ये भी important part of dealing with conflicts है. So UN का objective, UN बना किस लिए था? What was the basis, the organization, and what does it try to do? Now one by one we'll evaluate what all it has done, successful or not successful. So now start off. The first point here is that it has been a mixed success. UN का role बोलो या Security Council, same thing. It has been a mixed success. Number one, the first time it authorized use of force was in the Korean War to force withdrawal of North Korea. Successful. Okay, North Korea was pushed back and the Korean Rees line was drawn, 49th parallel, successful. Number two, it authorized use of all necessary means to stop Iraqi invasion of Kuwait 1990 में. So again successful. Kuwait was liberated. Okay, it was a US-led operation, but UN sanction tha. Third, it played a proactive role in the Bosnian crisis. Bosnian crisis 1993 plus 2001 में in Afghan crisis. So 2001 में it was fairly good intervention. Taliban were ousted. A democratic regime was set up, whatever. US ka role tha. Next point. The most active role, I'll not say most successful role, the most active role of the UN has been in Africa, in the peacekeeping operations. Ivory Coast conflict, Liberia conflict, Ivory Coast, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. In all the three places, they were able to stop the war and also withdraw after normalization. It also happened for Timor, East Timor, if you know. Wahan par bhi they intervened, peacekeeping force, a government was elected, and they again withdraw. So Timor mein successful. Next, not successful in stopping a conflict. Ukraine war, Russia's occupation of Georgia, Russia's occupation of Crimea, Syrian conflict 15 years, Yemen conflict 7 years, Israel-Palestine conflict, Camp David talks hua, Oslo Accord hua, but nothing really was lasting peace. Israel conflict not solved. North Korean missile crisis. North Korea continues to threaten, intimidate its neighbors, and the failed state of Haiti. Okay. Haiti is almost like a small island nation hai in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico के पास में Dominican Republic, Haiti. Haiti is a failed state. ठीक है, तो यहाँ so आप इसको टेबल बना लेना, सक्सेसफुल नॉट सक्सेसफुल, आपको एग्जांपल्स देना है. सक्सेसफुल एग्जांपल्स क्या क्या है? 5 6 7 हैं, and unsuccessful couple of them. The next point is that in conflict management, UN has a range of activities. लिस्ट बताया मैंने. Prevent conflict, कि झगड़ा होने ही मत दो, और reduce escalation, humanitarian assistance, protection of civilians, and prevention of war crimes. Prevention of war crimes ना 3 तरह के होते हैं. एक है genocide, mass killings, genocide है. Second is gender crimes, and third is child soldiers. The children are used as human shields. You arm the children, they fight the war. ये 3 major war crimes हैं. What does UN do for this? So our point here is the success of UN should not only be in terms of कि झगड़ा रुका या नहीं रुका. ये बाकी भी हैं आपके. Don't ignore those. Write down now. According to, now this is a research. According to EPON, Effectiveness of Peace Operation Network. According to EPON, it's an organization. EPON, Effectiveness of Peace Operation Network. एक study conduct करता है. EPON. UN role has been fairly successful in reducing conflicts and in protection of civilians. In Somalia में जो special mission hai, it's called as AMISOM, as in African Unity Mission for Somalia. AMI, let's just know this one. This is a special mission for Somalia. Somalia has been successful. It has also been fairly successful in UNMISS. This is the mission for South Sudan. अब South Sudan में क्या हुआ है? The conflict has again started, but okay, the escalation is less. UN could not prevent the conflict, but the conflict is not as severe. तो ये वाला तो successfully manage हो गया है. In this case, the escalation is less. Now, it says the UNCLOS is successfully managed India-Bangladesh conflict over EEZ. Now, MONUSCO. This is the mission for Congo. This is the mission for Congo. Okay. Now, this mission, it successfully stopped child soldiers. Okay? So it's not such a bad record for the UN either. Now, what are the reasons of failure? ये analysis वाला part. I'm evaluating. Examine the UN's का record क्या है? Reasons for failure क्या है? Now, one big reason is lack of resources. Lack of resources. The funding is less. Funding is less. Most of these are funded by the US, developing countries. So funding, resources बहुत कम है. The personnel sometimes are not as well trained. खासकर dealing with this new tech, okay, terrorism जो है, ये deal नहीं कर पाता है. Lack of resources. That's one. अच्छा. Second, ये बहुत interesting है. It says that the successful resolution is best when there is local participation of people and there is viable political local governance. That is, there must be viable political options that can govern the country in the absence of the UN. Otherwise क्या होता है? UN गया, they're all quiet. UN walks out, फिर लड़ लो. अगर local region में the government का options नहीं है, इसके best example देते हैं. Look at what happened for Korea. Okay, North Korea, South Korea. North Korea, no options. South Korea, vibrant democracy. वहां पर काम कर गया. North Korea में they are not succeeding and they can't even enter for that matter. Or Timor has a vibrant democracy. वहां पर if they withdraw, system continues. But think of what happened in Afghanistan or what's happening in Mali. Mali is a big failure. Afghanistan is a big failure. Why? Because there's no option. You withdraw from there, again Taliban enters, right? So agar local institutions may say, it says fundamentally, okay, so it says that UN can only be an interim support. Final resolution, final conflict resolution is a political process. Think of India, Pakistan. कितना ही UN घुस जाए इसके अंदर में, till India, Pakistan agree on a political level, तब तक problem solve होने वाला है नहीं. It is not UN का responsibility to stop the war. It can't. The final resolution जो होगा, it's always a political process. In the absence of a political system available, the conflict will happen. और यही हुआ है in case of Ukraine. जितना intervene कर ले, if two countries can't align politically, they're going to fight. It's wrong to blame the UN, we say here. The resources less hai. Second is UN can only be an interim support. That for success of peace, it's very important for an alternative government to have a credibility and acceptance, which happened for Timor and Somalia, but failed in Afghanistan or Sudan. So a failure of UN largely is that the local system doesn't exist. The failure of UN is also partly because of UN is also partly because of the post-colonization mentality, where often Western value systems are exported without the states to choose social and culturally relevant systems. Without the states to choose socially and culturally relevant systems. इसका best example Afghanistan भी है. इसका example is also your Iraq. Iraq had a constitution, okay, and the government never had legitimacy. It's like, US ने prop up कर रखा है. US is exporting democracy, but is actually promoting its own interests. So the solutions are not largely what the local people would have wanted. एक sham चलता है in the name of conflict resolution. Right, next, many a times, the interventions by UN-led forces or UN-authorized forces, interventions by UN-authorized forces are open to interpretations in terms of the roles. इसका example है US in Iraq. US was supposed to stop occupation of Kuwait by Iraq, but it did not have the mandate for war on Iraq. Okay, it went in for the war. ठीक है? वैसे ही, when the General Assembly says that we are condemning Russian invasion in Ukraine, it is not saying that Ukraine has to be armed to fight back Russia. The interpretation hai, that's open to again conflicts. So right down here, UN as an effective conflict resolution mechanism can operate only when there is genuine and accepting multilateralism. There is genuine and accepting multilateralism. In particular, this convergence of the Security Council members. इसीलिए Syria not resolved, Palestine not resolved, South China Sea not resolved, because okay, they can't align. China has a veto, उधर आपका Russia has a veto, US has a veto. So anything in Israel, US will veto. Anything in Syria, Russia will veto. South China Sea, China will veto. In these circumstances, अफगानिस्तान में वही कहानी है. तो जहां पर convergence नहीं है of the council, it will be a problem. The conflict resolution is a complex affair. The world today is much different from the post-war reality of 1940s and 50s. A post-world reality of 1940s and 50s. For a more effective UN, the UN itself must also reform. जिसमें आएगा veto reforms, Security Council reforms, funding reforms for UN, bottoms-up approach to solutions, etc. और एक last point, a very important point here. It says that effectiveness of conflict resolution or management can happen in coordination of multilateral bodies. मतलब क्या है कि UN अकेला नहीं है. It can happen when UN, IMF, World Bank, WTO, FAFT, ये पता है आपको ये सब institutions, they all work together. Okay, somebody is sanctioning funds, somebody is sanctioning trade, somebody is probably sealing the border, somebody says okay, no loans for you. Okay, जैसे अभी पाकिस्तान में हो रहा है, IMF term का एक यही है, roll back your nuclear program now, stop importing arms, stop funding your army. This is a kind of a all-out effort to corner a country, to stop them behaving as a rogue country. Okay, right down this point. The UN can be effective in collaboration with other bodies, like the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO, FAFT, Financial Action Task Force, FATF, sorry. Okay, जो आपका grey list, black list जो भी है, comma, suspension of aid by donor agencies, etc. UN also uses, comma के अंदर रखना, the good offices. It also uses the good offices, like the involvement of Secretary General through summits, mediation, dialogues, and arbitration to reduce the impact of conflicts. आपको recently पता है, the Black Sea grain corridor. In the recent Ukraine war, it was the good office of Secretary General. It was the good office of Secretary General that allowed for food grains export from Ukraine using the Black Sea so as to deal with the food and the fertilizer crisis in the global market. It's called as the Black Sea Grain Initiative. इसमें यूक्रेन भी सप्लाई कर पाया, रशिया भी सप्लाई कर पाया food, fertilizers. Otherwise, the global market would have been literally collapsed. So ये भी करते हैं. UN also does that. Collaboration करके, mediation करके, arbitration करके. Turkey was part of a joint project there. Like otherwise, Black Sea is mined, mines हैं. So they had to guide the ships through that under the joint protection of the forces. कि लड़ना लड़ लो कोई बात नहीं, but इतना तो आने दो, otherwise the world will collapse. So UN operates in different ways, in different capacities, अलग-अलग level पे करता है. Yes, mixed successes, but analysis of how UN ultimately affects.